is Patrick Rodriguez, and I'm the co-executive director of the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education in Prison. So before I go into what it was like to apply to college, I'd like to give you a little context of where I'm coming from. And I was in school in 2013 at Kennesaw State University, and I had dropped out. My life took a left turn. I got incarcerated in 2014, 5 different times. I did a 10-month stint. I got out. And then I was rearrested, and I did 42 months in the Georgia Department of Corrections starting in 2016, and I was out in 2019. And while I was incarcerated, I made a very conscious choice that I was going to go back to school so that I could close the circuit, so that I could finish what I had been so focused on for so long in my life. Going to college is something that I dreamt of when I was younger. I don't think there was a time in my life when I didn't think about going to school and becoming something, right? And so going back to school was pretty tough because I did drop out. I had to pay $1,500 to lift the restrictions that were on my account. I had some holds because of the past. I only had $3,000 to my name. I saved that up because of the transitional center. So I had to spend 50% of my entire savings just to be able to reapply again. This is without the guarantee of getting into school, right? And it was the biggest sacrifice that I think I've ever made in my entire life. But because I made that sacrifice, I sit here today. And I think that sometimes in life you have to make choices, and they're hard choices and they're sacrifices, and not knowing what's going to come of it, because I knew what was coming, and I knew that there was the chance and the possibility that I would not get accepted to Kennesaw State University because I've been convicted of a crime. And going back to school was really hard because I didn't know what to do and I didn't know what the first steps were. And so I had to sit down with a mentor, and he sat me down and he grounded me, and he said, well, what's the first step that you need to take? I said, I think I need to pay that $1,500 or $1,600 off. I don't remember the exact number. And he said, okay, so what are you going to do? I said, well, let me go think about this. And then I went to Kennesaw State University and I paid it the next day. And then I came back the next week and he said, so what did you do? And I said, I paid it. He said, you paid it? I said, yes, I don't have time. I said, I think we need to get this done now. And he said, okay, well then what's the next step? I said, it's time to apply. He said, okay, well then what's the next step after that? And I said, it's time for me to get my references. And so I began to get my references, and I started my application. And then once I started my application, I ran into those questions that many people before me have talked about: being convicted of a crime, being a first offender. I'm a first offender as well. And so it put me in a situation to where I had to go into an explanation as to who I am and what I have done. And I wrote a 14-page explanatory essay detailing every single crime that I had been convicted of, every single arrest that I have had, while also gathering my dispositional papers and also gathering my arrest records, by gathering my I forget what it's called. It's a GIC. GCI, my Georgia criminal history or whatever, so that I could explain who I was, and that I was of a sound mind, that I was of a clear enough mind to reattend the university. And I didn't understand why I had to do it. And I was doing all of this in the early phases when I couldn't get an apartment, and I was staying in my friend's tiny bedroom. It was smaller than a jail cell, and it was just a twin-size bed and a little bunk. And I'm sitting in the bed, and I remember sitting there, and the whole entire world just like crashes down, just comes to you. And I have to go back to the first time I was arrested in December of 2000, and in February of 2014. And I had to relive that moment, and I had to go back into that moment. I had to think, why did I make the choices that I make? And then how is it that from that time until now, how has my mindset changed? Am I able to explain this to these people who are holding this over my head? And they're letting me know that you're not in control anymore, and you made the choices that you made. And it's just a reminder. It was a very stark reminder as to the life that I live, because like I said earlier, I have to explain myself everywhere I go. And so I'm hoping that one day I no longer have to explain myself. So I was eventually accepted to Kennesaw State University, thankfully, but I had people along the way who assisted me. And they assisted me with just grounding me and just helping me think through the process and what the next steps were. And I ultimately took those steps. And by taking those steps, I'm eternally grateful. It taught me a really valuable lesson. And that was the lesson of, like, take the first step. Like, so many people get caught up and they think about what the next step is, and they think about what's possibly going to happen. They think about what the world could be like, but they don't take that first step to make it happen. And as soon as I got out and I was in my hardest time, I took that first step. And that first step is what leads me to explaining to exactly who I am. And I would be that first step.